Hello and welcome. This is Gert from SEOleverage.com and we are on episode 22. Today I have a special guest, Justin Meadows from tunewp.com. Welcome, Justin.
G'day, Gert. How you going?
Thank you so much for taking the time. We have met in Sydney last year, which I really enjoyed meeting you in person. I had heard a lot about you, your company, tunewp.com, tech support, etc. And I remember after we met in person, we had a great time here and they had a beer after the event. I remember we had a client afterwards asking me shortly afterwards if I knew someone who could do tech support. So I personally have been in programming for many, many years, too many, to be honest. I think my gray hairs come from there. I'm happy to be an SEO now. But I remember sending this person to you and they came back really happy. So they were stoked. They had someone who finally took care of their SEO, responded fast. We know all the issues people have with programmers. Taking some time, especially if it's small tweaks they're not really interested in financially. It really takes a lot of time to get those things done. And at the same time, it's really, really important for SEO to have this technical foundation right. Okay, so before we dive into this, I would want to ask you if you could give our listeners a little bit of a background. Where do you come from? Where does TuneWP come from? And what's your focus now?
Yeah, awesome. That's great to hear. I'm glad that our clients are happy that you've sent over. But yeah, no, my background actually, I started with SEO and went to web development, so I've got the opposite journey to you. But I wasn't in SEO for as long, I don't think. So in around 2009, I started fiddling around learning SEO, doing it on my own blogs, and just implementing that. I was just playing around with it. And then once I realized I could, understood the fundamentals, I could get it to work, I could get good results from it, I started offering it to other businesses around the other area for cash flow and that sort of thing. Because although I could rank my websites, I didn't know how to monetize them very well. So I'm like, all right, I'll go help other businesses, and that's the way I can make money. I quickly found that most of the times, the first thing I needed to do was fix their website. And so that led me down the path of website development. And at first I hated it. I hated having to fix their websites, but I built a pretty good team around me to help me with that. And I grew to like that side of things more. I like the website support and building out the websites and that sort of thing. And I found it a lot harder to hire and train people around me who could help me with the SEO. And I found that was a bottleneck for me, is I had to be across everything. So I decided to just turn off that part of the business and focus on the WordPress side of things. And now we just focus on support. So we don't even do website builds very much anymore. We mainly just take existing websites and optimize them. We look after the performance of the websites, the security, the maintenance, the updates, the hosting, all that sort of thing. And we have a 24-hour support desk to make sure that we can respond quickly and implement changes quickly for our clients. Awesome. To keep them ahead of the game, that sort of thing.
Yeah, that's amazing. That's amazing. I can certainly relate to this role of being on top of all projects in SEO. We have this very, very much. We spend a lot of time training, etc. But I still don't hand over projects completely. I'm still on top of every single project we have and revise it on a weekly basis, see how this is going and how this is. Record videos and do the consulting calls with clients, etc. So it's definitely challenging. But I do know the tech thing is just a really important part. So when we do a site audit, for example, very often it's like, I did site audits where I said, look, you could essentially create a new fresh WordPress installation, move over the entire content and start fresh, because the site might be too slow, might be not mobile optimized at all. The theme might be having JavaScript errors, etc. A lot of windows popping up. I had a site with a cookie banner, a bot plugin, and a pop-up showing right when you enter the site. And we do a lot of usability, user experience studies. We test sites on our mobile phones, on different phones, and see what comes up, what could be an obstacle. And mobile is really a topic we have seen growing really, really fast in the last years. Google was very quick giving the industry a heads up and say, look, mobile is coming, get ready for these things. We quickly saw with smartphones 30, 40, 50% and more mobile traffic coming to websites. Today, we're facing a situation where hardly any client has more desktop than mobile traffic on our side.
Yeah.
Not sure what's your landscape here, but we also see clients that have 70, 80% or more mobile traffic on their website, which is just an incredible evolution. And it's really, it's then interesting when I ask clients how they test their website, and they say, yeah, on the Chrome browser, on the desktop, right? So this is where I try to get them every Friday. I tell them, look, every Friday before you sign up for the week, make sure you open your website on the mobile phone and just try to accomplish a normal task you would expect the user to accomplish. Switch off your Wi-Fi to not get to also see how slow the site is, because Wi-Fi very often covers like big images and stuff like that. I say, switch off the Wi-Fi, go to a connection with 3G, 4G, whatever. Try to navigate your website on the mobile phone just to get a feeling of how what your website looks like to 80% of your customers, right? So very often we have a wrong impression where we say, okay, now everything looks fine, everything works, everything is fast. But for 80% of our customers, this is not the case. And user experience is just getting so important. With every Google update, I feel like Google shifts more towards usability, more towards loading speed, etc. What's your view based on your client portfolio when it comes to mobile?
Yeah, look, I definitely think it's a very similar case. 4 years ago, it was like you said, mobile was around 30, 40% or something, and now, it's more than 50% to 70% mobile usage. So it's mostly they're more mobile than desktop, and website design has, Google has been from the very early stages saying mobile is important, guys. Make sure you're doing that right. And it's been a slow sort of build up of how much noise Google's making about the importance of mobile. But yeah, the early most of the website designs these days are still designed as a desktop design with a whole bunch of really awesome looking things for on a desktop experience, but then what happens on the mobile version is an afterthought, and it's just like, well, we'll try and make it look okay on the mobile. They're not coming at it from the point of view of what makes an awesome mobile experience, and really in a lot of markets that the desktop is largely irrelevant. It's still it does depend on the market, and there are some things that people just expensive items people are not going to buy online from a phone as much. They'll go to a desktop. People still sort of there's still going to be some things like that the desktop experience is still important, but definitely the mobile experience is more and more important these days. And I think we've sort of followed the same path. We from when I very first started doing website design, we were doing mobile responsive. We didn't ever build any that weren't mobile responsive, but certainly we were treating the mobile version as a secondary thing and just making sure that there wasn't any horrible errors. It wasn't that we're making it look really good for mobile. So that's something that we've changed in our procedures. And now with the changing from not only mobile first but mobile only indexing coming up next month, there's we're now looking at, we've also been focusing with our speed optimization on largely the desktop version first, and then looking at mobile. But now we're just focusing only on the mobile, because if you optimize the mobile speed, the desktop speed's always great.
Exactly. What we tell clients, and I can say we could talk about what the desktop speed is, but just get your mobile speed fixed, and desktop is going to adjust. Yeah, we were looking at speed also from different. From two different areas. I think one, obviously everybody likes a fast loading site. Everybody wants to load a site loading fast. We have no patience, we have no time. So everybody, whatever you do, you're probably too busy to wait a couple of seconds to see a website load. So you switch back, click on something else. There is a lot of offer. There's hardly anything unique on a website you would wait 5 seconds to load for these days. So speed is definitely important for users, but something which was interesting that also Christoph Cemper from Link Research Tools confirmed the other day on the show is that speed obviously is also interesting for Google. So for Google, crawling a site faster means at scale they're saving millions of dollars. So they have a really strong financial interest to their facing their shareholders, facing their data structure. They can essentially probably since they launched this core Web Vitals we're going to address in a moment, this topic, I think they probably then can crawl the website in half the time, probably, because everybody's like crazy. This is going to be a ranking factor. We need to make our sites even faster. Google will have the benefit, the added benefit, let's put it this way. Don't want to suggest any hidden agenda here. They will have the added benefit of saving a lot of money or being able to crawl more pages with the same resources, right? So this is also so people understand a little bit. It's not only for users. Very often also the platforms push the agenda they are really interested in. So we see a similar thing with Facebook and latest Facebook ads changes. You can see kind of the agenda that might be behind their efforts. But on Google, we clearly see that they have a strong internal interest as well to be able to crawl the site faster. When it comes to, sorry. Yeah.
I also think from a historic perspective, Google's edge over the other search engines way back in the Wild West days of when Google wasn't the dominant search engine, one of the big things that helped it become dominant is that it was the fastest search engine. It was a simple page, you typed it in, it loaded results fast. And so if they can have a quick experience, if they can get you from typing in what you want to getting to the page and reading the information that you want as quickly as possible, that helps them and grow their business.
Absolutely. We're heading into a direction where Google will extract everything we have on our websites and show it on Google. We're definitely heading this down this path. We see many searches also already are so-called zero-click searches. So if you want to know the height of the Eiffel Tower, you don't have to go to any website. Google is going to extract the information and show it to you. They have the structured data, the knowledge graph, as they call it, where they know certain details about certain entities, Obama's birthday, height of buildings, age of fame of celebrities, etc. They know all this, and they're going to answer directly in search results. And this makes SEO, especially when you do it on your own, really challenging, because you kind of need to find your way around what Google might be answering very soon themselves and extract the data from websites, which is a little bit of shady approach. So they leverage the content someone has put together with a lot of resources and then just show it on the site and say, yeah, we just want to make users happy. That's fine.
Yeah.
But at the end of the day, Google is still trying to make users happy. Google knows a fast result and a fast website makes users happy. And this is where speed is just so important. Google is pushing a concept called Core Web Vitals. And this is a concept they announced this is going to be part of the ranking, part of the ranking factors. We already know speed is a part of the ranking factor. They now went one step further with this Core Web Vitals. I was wondering if you could break down this concept for our listeners a little bit. What is this Core Web Vitals about? Why should we pay attention to this?
Yeah, so it's mainly just 3 different metrics that Google have landed on that they think are the most important things to use to measure. There's a number of reasons for the different that they landed on these, and not a bunch of other metrics, because some of them can be deceptive and give you sort of a false sense of speed. These are the ones that they agree sort of show that you have the best mobile experience or the best speed experience. So there's I always get these mixed up and confused, but LCP is the largest contentful paint. And so that is the amount of time that it takes to load the largest element on the page. And it's only the element that is showing above the fold. So it's at the top of the page. So the way to help optimize your site for that is to make sure you don't have a lot of really heavy elements in your design above the fold and in the top of the screen, especially for mobile. Mobile is very sensitive to this. It's a common thing that we see. LCP has been a tricky one for us to sort of optimize for. because it involves changing the design really. And the other scores were sort of, once you did your normal speed optimizations, they sort of were taken care of, but LCP was often one that was not handled by our normal sort of speed optimization practices, but just rearranging things so that instead of having a really large, nice hero image as the background of that top section of your page, went on the mobile version, having that exact same image just reduced in size, but it's still loading a big image, that really hurts your LCP. So that's a common thing that we see, and you're better off just going with no background for that top section, because most of the time your headline should be there at the top of the page there, and that should be taking up most of the screen. So any image that you put behind that is largely going to be lost, and so really the benefit that it brings is not worth the impact it has on speed. So that's definitely one tip I'd give for that one. The other one is the first input delay, FID, and that score is usually sort of fixed up when you've got good hosting and a good CDN, and you don't have scripts and CSS, interfering with the load time. Yeah.
Well, just to interrupt for listeners who might not know what a CDN is, it's a content delivery network where you essentially distribute images and JavaScript content across different servers. So if you have a global audience, you're going to not be loading, for example, from Australia, from a server from the States, which would take longer to load. You probably have a copy of the same content in a server within Australia that's going to deliver the content, which is a good way to make sites faster. I've seen incredible success with CDNs. Okay, sorry to interrupt you. Just wanted to make
just
following.
Yeah, going more onto the CDNs, we've actually been doing some testing. I've been getting all of our clients to move over to Cloudflare for the last couple of years because it's a really good free CDN. It gets great results just turning that on and using that, and it's free, so it's like, why not? It also makes the process of migrating from one server to another server very easy, and managing your DNS is just easy when you've got that set up. The other thing is there's a bit of a security improvement there as well. Things like your servers, location of your server is hidden from bots and that sort of thing, and it does filter out a lot of bots from arriving at your website. But the thing we tested against was Stackpath, which is a rival CDN, has many of the same features. With Cloudflare on its Pro account, it's $20 US per month, and same with Stackpath. So they're both the same from a price point of view at that Pro level. And definitely with Cloudflare, they have a few features like APO and some image optimization features that get really good results at that Pro level. And in particular, that makes a big difference between the load time in other continents. So even with just the Cloudflare free, there was still a couple of seconds of delay in other continents, but with those Pro features enabled, that it was the same, or pretty much the same everywhere. With Stackpath, we found that it did actually get a slightly better speed score. So that was slightly better than the Cloudflare. But the other thing to consider was there's a security feature, the web application firewall, which filters out all those bots and malicious crawlers and that sort of thing. And that slows down the speed significantly on Stackpath, but not so much on Cloudflare. Okay. So it was a tricky one. At this
stage, something everybody could do, right? And to make an informed decision.
Yeah. At this stage, we're sticking with Cloudflare, but you can get, if you're happy to not have that security feature, you can get slightly better results with Stackpath. So
awesome. Yeah, I do remember the exact moment when I discovered Cloudflare, and this was unfortunately very late in my development career because I did a lot of development and site migrations and DNS updates, and you had to wait 24 hours to make sure everything is propagated across the entire internet. And with Cloudflare, it was just instantly. We had speed optimizations done, and in Cloudflare, did a much better job just by signing up. We
Yeah.
do have a pro account for our side as well, so it's definitely worth it. I appreciate you suggest this to clients. We also bring this up when someone still has their own DNS hosting or GoDaddy or some other provider for DNS hosting, just to make sure as a first step, get Cloudflare and you have some sort of free firewall for a start, and you can then upgrade whatever package you think you need. Also, very often it's a good way to just make sure 301 redirections don't even go to the server, because the DNS just makes sure the redirection is taking place. So there's a lot of features I really like also from an SEO point of view. There's one more core Web Vital, this cumulative layout shift. What is that about?
So that's about how much the elements on your website move around as it's loading. And so this is mainly affected by things like CSS, if your CSS is shuffling things around as it loads, or things like having, I think in particular, one of the things they were targeting with this is having ads and stuff. I know that this is a frustrating experience when you are scrolling through and then an ad loads and everything moves and you're about to click on a button and you click on the ad instead accidentally. So that's the thing in particular. On most business websites, I found it's not a huge issue because they're not trying to do tricky things. They don't have those ads in there. So generally speaking, it doesn't come up as an issue very much. And if you're building your site the right way and you've got all the you've got a nice simple website anyway, then you're not going to run into issues with that one.
Awesome. Yeah, that's definitely important one. I very often when clients ask me the first time for what the core web vitals are, I pretty much tell them it's a measurement on how much you're annoying users, right? So pretty much how long do they have to wait for the biggest element to load? They really want to know what it is, because you come to a website, there is a huge slider and it takes a few seconds to load. That drives me crazy. Right? If there is a video and it's really the basic content on a page, it drives me crazy because I have to wait for the video to load, right? If things shift around because suddenly I think I'm heading to the right menu item and it just shifts because they have like a huge header or hero banner, as they call this, very often on top of the header or something like this, it's really making people mad. And if they can't click on something because there's something in the background still loading and you have a feeling you see the circle is still spinning on the browser and you want to do something on the page, but something is, I don't even know what it is. I'm not going to know what it is, but I just can't do something. This first input delay, really, you don't want to annoy your users. And very often you find this out when you navigate on a mobile phone and just say, okay, if I only had 2 seconds to make a decision, very often you can figure out, is there work that needs to be done on the website, or are we good to go with user experience? I really appreciate you breaking this down. I want to quickly, before we wrap this up, touch base on WordPress. I know you guys are focused on WordPress, especially. You also do 10x Pro support. 10x Pro is a platform we have been using as well. We have been working with 10x Pro support with their founder, John Lind, to get them at a few features we were missing from an SEO point of view. I think in these days, it's a really solid SEO platform as well. So we have clients building out their entire websites on 10x Pro now.
Yeah, awesome.
Get help from you, for example, on your team when it comes to the design, theme adaptations, and like advanced configurations and stuff like that. But I want to focus a little bit on WordPress. Most of our clients are still on WordPress. I saw in the statistics the other day, I don't know, was it 70%, 80% of websites run on WordPress, something like this? I think it was crazy.
Yeah, it's massive now.
So I know everybody who is running the site on WordPress has issues, right? So I know this for sure. I have seen people switch eventually because they got hacked all the time. They didn't know how to protect their website, how often to reestablish it. They were running Facebook ads to their WordPress and WordPress was failing because the plugin updated, etc. So it definitely makes sense to have someone professional, I think, near the WordPress site. This is what I recommend, that if they don't have a person they can trust and that can help them quickly when something breaks, or also make sure security and stuff like that is taken care of. We definitely send them usually your way. But I was wondering if there were a couple of things you could suggest to someone who has a WordPress site, which they could essentially check out on their own, if that's the case for their site, or do on their site, or make sure just so they take something away from this episode that makes the site better. Any ideas?
Yeah, sure. So from a speed point of view, in particular, you want to have a good caching plugin. Caching plugin. It depends on where you are in the world how you say that. But the main thing, we've been testing out a few, and WP Fastest Cache is one that we really like. The other one is WP Rocket. So both of those are fairly easy to implement, yeah, getting those, that are both premium plugins, but it's well worth paying for those and implementing the features. Implementing lazy loading. You can actually get the WP Rocket lazy loading on its own if you go with WP Fastest Cache, and we've found that combination works really well. You can also integrate those with your Cloudflare CDN. So I would strongly recommend doing that. And that APO feature in Cloudflare Premium is that is integrating with WordPress in particular. So you put in a WordPress plugin, and that provides a deeper integration so that the cached copy of your website that's in Cloudflare is more comprehensive. Yeah, it gets you a much faster result. There's other there's a few different image compression tools out there. To be honest, we use different ones at different times for different applications.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Do you usually install anything for security purposes on WordPress?
Yeah, absolutely. WordFence is a really good free firewall for the security of your website. You would definitely make sure you want to have that. You also want to make sure you're taking backups automatically. I think it's good to have both server level and WordPress level backups, because we've had servers fail and we've had WordPress backups fail. You know, it's good to have a couple of options there. Right. So yeah, some people think just go with the hosting, but we've been burnt before. So we always take several layers of backups. One thing that's really important from a speed point of view with WordPress, and I think this is something that a lot of people run, it's a common one anyway, is that sometimes people build a site and then they'll get someone else to come in and build some other bits, and get someone else to come in and build some other bits. And then they'll have these different page builders. So there's page builders like Elementor, WP Bakery, Divi, Beaver Builder. All of these things add more CSS and scripts into the page as it loads. And it's even adding a bunch of CSS on pages that don't need to load that CSS to see it. And so that's a very easy way to bomb the performance of your website, is just having a bunch of different page builders. So make sure, and there's a lot of, it's a common trap as well to go with these user-friendly themes that are all-in-one multi-purpose themes that can do anything. But that also means that they're loading a bunch of extra CSS and stuff that is not needed. So yeah, you're better off going with a very lightweight theme. And we've actually also found that, so our preferred page builder is Beaver Builder. That gets a very good, from a performance point of view, is one of the better ones. It's also very user-friendly. It's very easy to, basically it does a lot of things like being able to create a template and rows that you can reuse on other pages. So it makes it a bit easier to build out new landing pages and that sort of thing. But we've also been testing that against just using Gutenberg blocks and Genesis blocks. Genesis theme is the theme that we've been developing with for years. It's a very lightweight base sort of clean canvas theme that doesn't have much to it. You've got it's just got the framework there. And they've now got a blocks feature that adds to the Gutenberg blocks to give you some more customization and the ability to save and reuse blocks that you've built before. And we found that gets a better mobile speed score than Beaver. But definitely both of those are miles above the likes of Divi. Divi is horrible from a performance point of view.
I know we're still on Divi, but we're also looking into switching that one. Cool. This was amazing. So let me recap a little bit. So we have a WordPress. We want to make sure we have a good caching plugin. You mentioned WP Fastest Cache, WP Rocket. By the way, we're going to link to the plugins you mentioned and the suggestions we gave, Cloudflare, etc., on the show notes. If someone wants to look them up, it's going to be on seoleverage.com/podcast episode 22. We get a caching plugin. Caching essentially means we prepare essentially what needs to be delivered to a user's browser, and not have to do this directly when they access the website, right?
Yeah. The way I sort of describe it is it's like giving a new Lego set. You have all these different pieces, and then you've got to put it all together yourself. Whereas if you're caching, then you're just giving a pre-built Lego set. All the pieces are already in the right place. It's a lot faster for the browser to deal with a website where all the pieces are already in place for it.
That's funny. I usually try to explain it with a restaurant. When I was a kid, I used to help out in my uncle's restaurant, and I was at the bar preparing Coca-Colas and opening up beer bottles, etc. And I knew he was going to come in the next 2 minutes asking for a beer bottle, so I always had a few beer bottles already open. But this was my case, right? So I can have them as fast as possible because I already had them prepared. But I think I'm going to switch to your Lego analogy. I like it much better. In any case, the WordPress already prepares what needs to be delivered, and it's not going to need the server to prepare this for every single user. Lazy loading is an interesting concept. We see very often on e-commerce sites where you scroll down and images, for example, load when you scroll down. They don't load before, so there's less data that needs to be loaded when accessing the site. And it's not a big deal. It takes milliseconds to load those smaller images when you scroll down. You don't have to have so many requests going to the server to load all this stuff. This is definitely interesting. You mentioned WP Rocket lazy loading here. I'm going to link to this one as well. Page builders is an interesting one. I get asked very often, and we didn't do the testing. So now we have some tested data we're going to tell our clients as well. You mentioned Beaver Builder and Genesis here. I've had very good things about Genesis. Haven't heard anything about Beaver Builder, to be honest, but I'm also not in this WordPress space anymore. So we're definitely going to link to those. Genesis. One
of the initial things that attracted us to Beaver as well is that it's very easy to edit in the back end.
Okay.
Quite often with some of the other page builders, when you're loading it up to make changes, it can be very slow. So it's not just for the user experience; it's also for the person who's managing the website.
Absolutely, this is an important one. I remember one site. This was a consulting firm where we were managing their SEO. And it was crazy. There was I don't remember the page builder it was, but there are so many blocks, so many icons, so many stuff that got loaded just to show me the page where I can then finally start. This was like 10 seconds just to load the interface before I did anything. And this was really, really annoying. You talked about Cloudflare. Cloudflare essentially lives within server and the domain hoster, if you want. Would this be correct? So if you have your domain registered on GoDaddy and you have your server somewhere, Cloudflare would live in between?
Yeah, exactly.
So essentially whatever request goes to your server would go through Cloudflare, which enables them to do a lot of optimization and filtering work, right?
Yeah. So instead of the request going all the way, it just goes to the nearest Cloudflare and like data center, and that's where it has all the information. It's also a useful tool for just managing your tech team. So if you have someone who's your IT guy looking after your emails, and you've got a website guy who's looking after your website, that's generally two sort of different disciplines, and you can easily give access to both of them in Cloudflare without having to also give up access to your domain registrar, which can be something that some people don't like doing, is giving logins or access to their domains, because that really is the key to your website.
Absolutely. I was going to say this is really the master key, right? This is really the master key. We just had one client who had his site messed up because he found a programmer on Upwork, gave them essentially the master key to their hosting They were able to do all kinds of stuff. They then said, yeah, we're done. And then afterwards, a lot of things turned out to not work anymore. And then you have this person you have no relation with. They don't have a service. They don't have a company. They don't have a business. It's just an anonymous person, pretty much. You're not verifying the ID probably when you ask them to do a 2-hour job on your website. But essentially, you are handing your entire online business over to a person you barely know. And when I explained it this way, this client turned red and said, "No, I'm not going to do this anymore." I think they ended up with you anyway. All right. But it's something we really need to consider, right? We always need to be the owners of everything. And this comes also, we see this on Google Ads, for example. My clients, I've been doing this for almost 20 years now. My clients always were the owners of their Google Ads accounts. Okay, so if you pay someone to run your ads, there is no reason why they need to own your account, right?
Yeah, exactly.
If you just pay for leads, it's a different game. But if you pay someone a service to run your ads, there is no way they should be owning the account. You should be the one owning the account and giving access. The same way, I'm not going to give my plumber the property rights on my entire house just because he needs to fix a pipe. But this is something people do in the online space all the time. They find someone, they say, "Oh, do you know how to do this?" Maybe they can ask a couple of questions to verify if this person really knows what they do. But then essentially you hand everything over. And then obviously you might need to go back to backups, which you have mentioned sometimes on the server. Even though there is a backup, it might not be either working, available, be complete, etc. So you want to have multiple stages of backup. I think this was a very important suggestion as well. And second, you really don't know what they do. I've seen really, really weird things. People essentially left like one PHP file that essentially was like a file explorer on a Windows that gave everybody who knew what this file was called access to all the files on the site. And people might leave a backdoor open. We've seen everything, right? People might leave a backdoor open. They're not on your project anymore. But if they decide half a year later that they want to access your hosting, change your files, screw up your site, or redirect all the traffic to their competitors, they can do this because they left a backdoor open. This is where it's so important. Either if you don't have someone on your team you really trust, find a trusted provider like Justin and his team, where you know they're going to be around tomorrow, if there were any claims really. But at least you have multiple people who can step in and fix things and have a very good control and a trusted process.
Yeah, going just quickly back to Cloudflare, that's actually something that we've always done as well, is create the account in the client's name. So if we're setting up a Cloudflare account for you, we'll do it in your name, and then we'll just have logins, you'll have logins, but and you'll own it. If the password gets changed, you're the only person who can reset it, not us. Like I've seen a number of times where clients have come over to us and they've had Cloudflare set up, but it's in the developer's account and they're not going to give us access to it, and we have to create a new one and change it over and all that sort of thing. Like it's important to do things make sure it's all set up in your account.
I think this speaks in favor of the trusted relationship you seem to be having with your clients. At least this is the feedback we get from our clients. There are people that really respond. People really try to understand what is the situation. We have seen speed audits you do on sites. We have seen the optimization work you have been doing on sites. Very often we identify speed as one. Just initially before we hit record, we identified on one of the clients the real roadblock that's really all the time shifting their rankings around, is that they don't have a solid technical foundation. Okay, and this is where I really want to wrap this up. We got a lot of advice. We're going to link to all the plugins, but I want to wrap this up saying really the technical foundation of a website is the same as an engine on a car that just needs to work. Whatever car I purchase today, I expect it to bring me from A to B. I don't need to understand the motor, but I know that if anything is not working right in the engine, it's not going to bring me from A to B. And this is where on the website we have the very same situation really, right? If the website's technical foundation isn't going to work, your ads are not going to work, you're not going to get your leads, you might not get your rankings, you might annoy users, people might always turn to your competitor's brand because your site doesn't work correct. You might get negative feedback. I've seen forum posts about slow sites where they say, "Now they would have a good price, but their site is crappy. Every second date it doesn't work, or their checkout has issues if it's an e-commerce site or stuff like that." So we see all this, and this is really what's very often called a sunk cost, right? You think everything is working, so you can open your website, everything seems to be working. but there might be issues you're not even aware of. And this is where a speed audit, a site audit really comes in handy, and so you get a neutral view about what is the situation right now. And then essentially a task list on what needs to be fixed to get this solid foundation happening. And really where we very often come in is once this foundation is created, or while very often your team works on this foundation, we work on the content side of things. But SEO progress mostly can only happen if there is a solid technical foundation, a usable and speedy site. Justin, thank you so much for joining us today. I think this was really, really valuable insights. I think we are going to bring you on another time in the future to talk a little bit more about more specifics here. I think people are going to have a long checklist to go through already. If someone wants to get in touch with you, wants to consider a speed audit or get in touch with your team, what would be the best way?
Support@tunewp.com is the best way to get in touch. But yeah, you can certainly go over to our website, tunewp.com, and sign up for one of our free speed audits, and we can give you the list of recommendations for your site and what's going to make the biggest difference, and then you can decide what to do from there.
Perfect. Yeah, we're going to link to the speed audit as well. Thank you so much, Justin. It was a pleasure to have you, and looking forward to having you again on the show in the future, hopefully, and we talk a little bit more about what we can do to improve our sites.
Yeah, no worries. Thanks for having me, man.
Thanks.
Cheers.